Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Manachari. Yamunatira Manachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa Parivajaka Ashtotter to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajaka Ashtotter to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtapraya Shabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavad-gītā shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Do me a favor and get those curtains. Thank you. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 14th day of May 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are still in the 9th chapter entitled Liberation. ninth canto, entitled Liberation, 21st chapter, the dynasty of Bharat. And we're beginning text 19, and we'll read through 21. And 21 is on the board, apparently. Okay. So I'll just read this in English here, 19 to 20. From Garga came a son named Shini, and from his son was Gargya. Although Gargya was a kṣatriya, there came from him a generation of brāhmaṇas. From Mahavir came a son named Duritakṣaya, whose sons were Chayaruni, Kavi, and Pushkararuni. Although these sons of Duritakṣaya took birth in a dynasty of kṣatriyas, they too attained the position of brāhmaṇas. Brihatshathra had a son named Hasti, who established the city of Hastinapur, now New Delhi. No purport there. And this is the one we have on the board. Ajamīḍha, Dvimidhash, Cha, Purumidhash, Cha Hastinaha, Ajamīḍhasya, Vaiśya, Suhu, Priyamedādayo, Vijaha, Ajamīḍho Dvimidhascha, Purumidhascha Hastinaha, Ajamīḍhasya Vaiśyasu, Priyamedādayo Vijaha, Ajamīḍho Dvimidhascha, Purumidhascha Hastinaha, Ajamīḍhasya Vaiśyasu, Priyamedādayo Vijaha, Ajamīḍho Dvimidhascha, Purumidhascha Hastinaha, Ajamīḍhasya Vaiśyasu, Priyamedādayo Vijaha. Ajamīḍho Dvimidhascha, Purumidhascha Hastinaha, Ajamīḍhasya Vaiśyasu, Priyamedādayo Vijaha. Go ahead. Ajamīḍho Dvimidhascha, Purumidhascha Hastinaha, Ajamīḍhasya Vaiśyasu. No, Priyamedādayo. Priyamedādayo Vijaha. Ajamīḍho Dvimidhascha, Purumidhascha Hastinaha, Ajamīḍhasya Vaiśyasu, Priyamedādayo Vijaha. Chad. Ajamīḍho Dvimidhascha, Purumidhascha Hastinaha, Ajamīḍhasya Vaiśyasu, Priyamedādayo Vijaha. You want to try, Hannah? Not today. Okay. Anyone online ready to chant? Guess not. No, you're not online anymore. Ajamīḍha, Ajamīḍha, Dvimidha, Cha, also, Purumidha, Cha, also, Hastinaha, became the sons of Hasti. Ajamīḍhasya, of Ajamīḍha, Vaiśya, descendants, Suhu, are Priyamedādayaha, headed by Priyamedha, Vijaha, brāhmaṇas. Translation. From King Hasti came three sons named Ajamīḍha, Dvimidha, and Purumidha. The descendants of Ajamīḍha, headed by Priyamedha, all achieved the position of brāhmaṇas. Or we do say brāhmaṇas. Brāhmaṇas. Purport. This verse gives evidence confirming the statement of the Bhagavad-gītā that the orders of society, Brahman, Kṣatriya, Vaiśya, and Śūdra, are calculated in terms of qualities and activities. Guna karma vibhagashaha, which is a quote from Bhagavad-gītā 4.13. All the descendants of Ajamīḍha, who was a kṣatriya, became brāhmaṇas. This was certainly because of their qualities and activities. Similarly, sometimes the sons of brāhmaṇas or kṣatriyas become vaiśyas. Brāhmaṇa vaisyatam gataha. When a kṣatriya or brāhmana adopts the occupation or duty of a vaiśya, krishigo rakshavanijam, he is certainly counted as a vaiśya. On the other hand, if one is born a vaiśya by his activities, he can become Brahman. This is confirmed by Narada Muni. Yasya yal lakshanam proktam, Srimad Bhagavatam 7:11-35. The members of the Varṇas, or social orders, Brahman, Kṣatriya, Vaiśya, and Śūdra, must be ascertained by their symptoms, not by birth. Birth is immaterial. Quality is essential. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandjana salakaya chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Time out. It may be one of many. Sorry. I'm directly realizing the fact that the body is filled with mucus, bile, and air. Okay. So why should it be attractive? It should be, I think, attractive. All right, moving on. Okay. So this very verse that we chant before class, Om Jnana Timirandasya, is in the mood of this class, is that although we may have been born in the darkest of ignorance and actually Antyajas outside the Varnashram system, not really qualified as even Shudras, still by hearing from a pure devotee and contacting Srila Prabhupada's books and associated with devotees, one can change one's qualities and activities. And this was a central principle of Lord Chaitanya. That's why he was doing public kirtan all the time. He wasn't hiding away somewhere in an ashram and just speaking to Brahmins or anything. It was the power of the process of Krishna consciousness, beginning with the chanting of the holy name, is extremely purifying. And that's why the very first words of the Shikshastika talk about that. Cheto darpana marjanam. By this process of chanting, especially together in congregation, sankirtan, the mirror of the heart is polished. And it's a poetic way of saying that one's consciousness is purified. And in that purified consciousness, naturally results in purified activities. That's the whole idea. But how do you know what activities to do? Sangha. We were discussing last night, or yesterday the class had this word, prasangam. I don't know if you remember that. Prasangam is, Prabhupada sometimes he would say prakrishta rupena, right? As this the prefix pra amplifies, or right, the word, whatever it's talking about. So this word, we'll start with this verse, which came to mind as soon as I read this purport. In the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā, we find this famous verse that Prabhupada would quote quite often, Purushak prakatisto hi, bhunkte prakati jan gunan, karanam gunasangosya sadasadyoni janmasu. The living entity of material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. So what's going on here is that the living entity is described here as Purusha. Although by nature we're Prakriti, with the superior energy of Krishna. Jiva is the Jiva Shakti, the marginal energy of the Lord, Tatastha Shakti. But our problem is we're trying to be Purusha. We're trying to be the enjoyer. We're imitating Krishna. That's what Maya means. So therefore, the Jiva is referred to as the Purusha. prakritisto, situated within material energy. Bhunkte prakatijan guna. Now the word bhunkte probably always has enjoys, but I'm pretty sure it can also mean simply experiences, because is experiencing the gunas, the three modes of material nature generated from prakriti. That's prakritijan, means generated. So we're experiencing, sometimes it's not a very pleasant experience, so you can't say enjoys, you know. But bhunkte can mean both things. So as we associate with the modes, karanam, that's the cause, guna sangha, the association with the gunas, sadasa yoni janmasu, of our birth in good and bad wombs in other species. We can lose the human form of life and be cast down, you know, into the animal form or even lower, depending on what consciousness we cultivate. And that consciousness is always reflected in our activities and in our qualities. So this is a central principle of Krishna consciousness. But what the essence of it is that in the human form of life, because of the higher intelligence, we can exercise that to get a certain amount of free will, right? I mean, we have boundaries, of course, by our body and whatever, but there's a lot of free will there. What we're going to hear, what books we'll read, especially what persons we're going to associate with. So that choice is given to us. I mean, before reading Prabhupada's books and meeting the devotees, I had no idea that there was such a thing as Krishna consciousness. I didn't even believe in God. You know, I was so stupid. But meeting the devotees and reading the books, especially the one that really got me was the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. I had the Krishna book, which is nectar, you know, but it was a little bit too much Leela for me at that point. I was really into the philosophy, you know. Of course, if I had read a little bit and got to chapter 87, I had all the philosophy I could handle. the prayers of the personified Vedas. But the teaching of Lord Chaitanya, Prabhupada explicitly drew out the teachings from the CC, which is full of a lot of Leela, which is some of that in the teachings, TLC, but it's Lord Chaitanya's teachings to Sanatan and Rupa and Ramananda Roy and all that, you know. And that really intrigued me. You know, that really got me very eager to visit the temple regularly, and by that association, and I was very fortunate. So the whole idea in these verses is that we have free will, and you know, this is an extreme example of this. Practically all the descendants of the kings, you know, they achieved the position of brāhmaṇas. So that was, you know, due to good fortune, or because King Hasti, who was, you know, and the other kings there, they really specifically, you know, engaged the Brahmins in teaching their sons and encouraged the sons to do it, you know. So that's you know, a great fortune, as Prabhupada said in many places, you know, the wonderful fortune that he had and Bhaktisiddhanta had, you know, to be born into a family of pure devotees. You know, his father especially, he really revered. And it's wonderful. I forget what the book is in the CC, maybe, that he dedicates it to his father. Now, actually, that's a Krishna book. And then, who was a pure devotee and really blessed me. As you know, he set up the Ratha Yatra. You know, actually, you know the story. He really wanted to. I think he was taken to Puri, saw the Ratha Yatra. Somehow he found out about it, and really, this is just a little boy. You know, maybe 6, 7. He wanted to have a Ratha Yatra of his own. So his father said, "Okay, we'll try to get you a card," but he couldn't find one. Then there was an old lady who had one at home, and she said, "You can have this one." And I think there's a photo or maybe a drawing of Prabhupada with that Ratha Yatra, that card, you know. And he engaged his friends, you know. So that's a very fortunate birth, obviously. But the whole point of Lord Chaitanya's movement is that by the efforts of Lord Chaitanya himself and his sincere followers, they can make people fortunate if they're a little bit open to association and taking part in the process. The process is so powerful. So here, somehow or other, practically all these descendants became Brahmins. And, you know, this is I think in India, it's pretty much still the caste system. You know, you're born a Brahmin, you know, you're Brahmin, get out of my way, you know, you're driving. which is ignorance. It's right in the Bhagavad-gītā is guna and karma. It's qualities and activities. So that's the challenge for us, because we may have initiation as a Brahmin, or be accepted as such, but it means that there's a lot of responsibility there. That your activities, your qualities, your cultivation of knowledge, and everything that Brahman does is we develop that. There's a little history here that you probably don't know unless you read this part. I think it's in the Lilamrita. The first Brahmin initiation, I think it was in Boston, because Boston was the first temple that had the press in it, and it had all the painters there and the editors and things. So we had the Brahmin initiation, but it's just for the males, devotees. And I think it was Jadharani who objected. Why just the males? So Prabhupada acceded that okay, but you can't get the thread. That's a tradition. But we can see how important the ladies are especially on the altar. And I'm thinking Yamuna. Yamuna, of course, very famous for her singing and cooking. But she also was the devotee who was assigned to set up the standards of worship in the Krishna Balaram temple when it was open in 75. A very responsible position. So yes, the ladies can also be Brahmins, but they like the men have to display the Brahminical qualities and activities. But that's essential part of Lord Chaitanya's movement, is the ability of any soul to transform its consciousness and thus transform its destiny. In other words, we're all heading toward another birth, one way or another, right? So the question is, what is that birth going to be? We should, with everything we do, ideally at every moment, is this the right thing to do for Krishna consciousness? Is this what I'm supposed to do now? And the more we get in the habit of routinely choosing that, the more auspicious our passage on the Bhakti Marg will be. And for myself, I'm just hoping to get an equal birth or a higher birth next time. I mean, I don't know, back to Godhead. But it's certainly something to work for, and I mean, we've seen, I somehow or other, I've been blessed with being able to chant for many of the devotees, maybe a dozen over the years at their time of departure. And I saw it as a great honor to do that, and I saw many very auspicious departures, because I had the other experience before I even joined. I was working in a hospital as an inhalation therapist, so I was at the bedside of many who passed away. I even killed one guy, I think, inadvertently by giving him air instead of oxygen. He had a heart attack, and I put it in the air thing. Hopefully not. I didn't see him die. He was a young guy, maybe, hopefully. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it was very rarely, I mean, they were always, if they were awake, they were freaked out. Why not? What do you think? This is what's happening. Who are these people? Who are these ugly people coming for me? That happens. It's called terminal restlessness in the hospital. You've heard of that. The nurses have a name for it. Yeah, they're seeing dogs and they're seeing all these, they will give them a pill, calm them down. That's the worst thing that can happen at the time of death, to be given some sedative to put you out, so you have consciousness. Anyway, but I've also been at the side, by the bedside of wonderful devotees who successfully passed, chanting Hare Krishna, and seeing the potency of this process, and how fortunate we are to have come in touch with Srila Prabhupada. So I can maybe go back to this verse, which is one of my favorite all-time verses, Purushak Prakatisto Hi, because let's see, I had that. Oh, here. Yeah, I mean, this is, it's central to the Bhagavad-gītā's principle. The principle of the talk, that Arjuna has a choice. Krishna is trying to get him to make the right choice, and that choice will make all the difference, not only in Arjuna's life, but in the life of the world, because Arjuna is the main warrior on the good guy side. And if he gives up, then that'll dispirit the whole thing. So it's understood that he holds in his hands, likely the result. Although at one point Krishna says in the 11th chapter, "Hey, whatever you do, they're not going home, because that's my plan." And he shows he's chewing them up in his mouth. It's pretty scary. So, but that's there. But still, Arjuna has that choice. Kadishe, he says, I forget the phrase. Do as you like. Now that I've spoken to you, it's your choice. What is it? Yeah, as you'd like, you perform, you act. And then Arjuna has ultimately the most, the essential words, Kadishe vachanang tava, that by your mercy my ignorance has been dispelled, and now I'm going to do as you say, which is really what Krishna consciousness is all about. By the mercy of Krishna and his representatives, the gurus and sadhus and our Srila Prabhupada, of course, our consciousness has been purified, and now we see what we should actually do, which is a million miles away what we would have done if we, at that point in our life, if we hadn't met them. So that power of the process and those who are expert at it and advanced in it is very great if we let it, if we are open to it, if we want to hear. The whole thing is want to hear. That's why it's so nice to see Hannah from all her travels. She's come back to sit in the Bhagavatam class. How about evening classes? Can you start making some of those? Okay. See? You said that in front of the deities. So, yeah. So that's the key, is the hearing. And what was that? Well, of course, that verse, this word prasanga, it came up, I think, yesterday. And that key verse, it's almost like an iconic verse for ISKCON. Satam prasangan mama virya sambido bhavanti ritkana rasayana kata tadjoshanad ashu apavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukrameshati. And prasanga has different meanings, but it means a certain kind of sangha, in which Prabhupada, it's the what's described in the second verse of the whole Bhagavatam. One hears with the shushu, with a submissive all reception, ardent hearing, means accepting what you hear and allowing it to change your life, not having a curtain. I accept 1, 2, 3, but that doesn't sound right. No. You've suspended your judgment and you're open to hearing and receiving and being transformed. So that's the ideal of sadhu sangha, is that Srila Prabhupada, he created sadhus, and he gave them the subject matter for hearing and chanting, beginning with the holy name, of course. And if one is open to that and has faith, the first aspect of the process Lord Rupa Goswami outlined is ado shraddha. Means, probably call it as respect, but it means that yes, I've read the books, I see the result of it, I've seen, and I'm open to the words transforming me, basically. So satam is this of the sadhus, satam prasangan, with this meaningful, intense association with sadhus, satam prasangan. Mama virya sambido bhavanti ritkana. You will hear talks, conversation of my powerful activities. This is Kapila Dev speaking, incarnation of Krishna. Bhavanti, and what is the result? Ritkana rasayanak. Rasayana is like a life-giving elixir. It is, and it's compared, just like at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, to a wonderful beverage that you should drink forever, by becoming a rasika. You have to become someone who can really taste and relish, and then why should you ever give it up? There's no limit, So that's what he's described. Bhavanti rit, the heart, karna, and the ear, karna, rasayana kata. The kata, the talks, the sound vibration glorifying me. This is not me, but Kapila Dev is full of these potencies. So then what's the result? Tad Joshanad, and prosecuting this process, regularly. That's why that it says in the verse, that one who regularly attends Srimad Bhagavatam class, right? Every morning we sing that. That's the prayesha. But Nityam Bhagavat Sevya. Nityam. Not for only 7 days. Prabhupada came from India, and you'll find several passages in those first cantos where he's putting down, this idea of a Bhagavat Saptaha. Of 7 days of hearing, a big stadium, and you have the Bhagavad-gītā, and of course, what are they hearing? Rasa dance. What else? That's the essence, right? No, you don't jump up to the rasa dance. You start with the first canto. So that's bogus. Yes, it worked for Maharaj Pariksit. He was a separate, he was a special case. The whole Bhagavatam was spoken in 7 days by Shukadev, and Pariksit, went back to Godhead. But it's not going to work for us. So every day, every morning. What is it? Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavad-gītā Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. And when it becomes Naishtiki, that's the Nishta in the Ado Shuddha verse. Is firm faith. And Rupa Goswami defines that to Sanatan in his teachings in the Madhya Lila. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe Sudvidha Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Korle Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. Real faith is firm, unshakable conviction that just by the activities and the culture of Krishna consciousness, all my aspirations will be fulfilled. It's not like on Saturday and Sunday I do my bhakti, and when Monday comes along, all I can do is my work, and then I go to the movies in the evening. No, that's not going to work. Every day, it has to be serious. So so Mama Bhavanti Rikkhan Rasayana Katha. So that katha amongst those devotees, when you're in the mood of prasanga, really participating and hearing and drinking it in like nectar, this is the result. But Rikkhan Tad practicing this ashu quickly, relatively quickly. It's not like many births or anything. Tad Joshana ashu apavarga vartmani. Now, Nilesh, can you give me the what should I say? The hidden meaning of the word apavarga, or why it means what it's supposed to mean? You have the mic. It's right there. Are you looking for a book? Are you looking for your phone? No phones allowed. If you don't know it, it's okay. Okay. Sureshwar? No. Naveen? You haven't got to this part yet. Go ahead, Makana. Yeah. Let's give him the mic. What does each one stand for? Appa. A is... I
don't think I remember any more other, but apavarga. So there's pavarga like in Sanskrit, syllables or...
yeah, it's a family of consonants.
The family of consonants.
Labials.
Pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. And so, but it starts, but apavarga, so it's A, P.
Well, no. The A means against the pavarga. Yeah. So what pavarga stands for the...
Yeah, so I remember mrityu at the end is death. I don't remember which of the P's is the hard work.
P is parishrama. Is hard work that produces.
And then the second, the pa?
Pa, like at the horse's foam.
So what's the first pa?
That's parishrama, like very hard work.
But it's pa.
No, it's pa, P, and PH. Pa for painila.
There's not a P and then an exasperated P. There's just one P. No,
there's and then it's PH, which is the aspirated P. But that's you're working so hard, you're like a horse. You get the foam at the mouth.
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay.
Okay, and then B. That can be that's fear. That's BH.
Oh, BH.
So, but it can actually too. I always thought it was bondage, but it said bhyartata, which means frustration, and then fear because death is coming, and sure enough, the last one is M, mrityu. So, but the process. So the process of apavarga means liberation, getting free of all those things, getting free of material body, which produces all that stuff. So that's why in this verse this word apavarga appears. Tajoshanad ashu apavarga vartmani, the path of liberation from the miseries of the material world. You make nice progress on that, and then what increases? What do you experience? Shraddha, ratir, bhakti, anukramishati, step by step. Your faith increases. You see, because you're associating with all these devotees, just like in a kirtan. You know, if you're in an hour-long kirtan and dancing and chanting, you know, and you see the devotees so much into it, you know, that'll increase your faith. You may be an observer at first, but if you you'll have more faith in the process. But especially, you know, also this like hearing and chanting Bhagavatam and discussing. That's why Prabhupada really liked this idea of a course, Bhakti kṣatriya, and he had several courses, because that's what the idea is. You have there's a teacher who's experienced, like Burijan Prabhu. He's probably given 100 of these, and then you have people from all over the world coming in. They want to take notes. They're really serious about progressing, you know. And so that your knowledge will, you know, naturally increase, because you have faith, you have confidence that that's what you want to do. So then Shraddha, Ratir, Bhakti. So what happens is your faith deepens, you get more and more attraction for Krishna and everything related to Krishna, especially Krishna Katha, and then Bhakti, which can also mean pure Bhakti here or Prema. And all of these increase step by step, just by associating with sadhus, who are defined in an earlier verse, Tatikshava, Karunika, Suridak Sarvadehinam, Ajata Shattavar, Shantar, Sadhavak, Sadhabhushana. Now we saw this embodied, of course, in Prabhupada and also in Prahlad Maharaj. If he wasn't the emblem of tolerance, I don't know what he was. But also mercy, you know. After all of that happened, he still had mercy on his father. Oh, Nrsingadev, please deliver him, you know. And on all the conditioned souls. I don't want to go back to Godhead alone. I can chant your glories anywhere, Lord Nrsingadev, and dive with an ocean of nectar. But I don't want to just go and join you in the spiritual world. I want to stay here and try to help these fools and rascals who have no knowledge of you. So that's the quality of a real Vaishnava. So that comes from it's all sangha, you know. It's a society, international society. We probably gave it that name because, you know, coming together is that how everyone can advance. And he gave the perfect environment in that little storefront. You know, here he had a bunch of hippies. You know, they were trying to find God through LSD. You know, so he would give them the process: stay high forever. Here's you know, by chanting Hare Krishna. And enough of them became serious to seed the movement. There's this. Several of you probably have read this book. I read it for the first time recently. Shama Sundar's first volume of Chasing the Rhinos with the Swami. It's very wonderful. Yeah, going to. I mean, what could be a bigger rhino than to meet the Beatles and you know. I mean, they didn't know when they left. I don't think, you know, how much he was involved. And George Harrison was listening to the Hare Krishna records for days on end. But it was it actually what it does for me is increase my faith in Lord Chaitanya and Krishna as making all these arrangements for the success of Prabhupada's mission. They so much wanted him to succeed. So we're all descendants of that. We're sitting here because of all the hard work and the devotion, you know. And we can perfect our lives by carrying it forward as best we can, and becoming also media. Media means that ways in which this science and this philosophy can be transmitted to our contemporaries. You know, most importantly, of course, by giving Prabhupada's books, but as well, going back to the verse that we're studying here, and many of these verses, embodying the qualities that you find in the book. If they find, you know, devotees very joyful and not so anxious, and people are, you know, freaked out, that's what I found. Here's my contemporaries, and all of them, David Susskind show. Did you ever see that? Anyway, I don't want to go into that, but they had the New York devotees, and there must have been some others, maybe from Detroit, because Bhagavan was there, you know, so there's a good bunch of devotees. And all of them were like early 20s, you know, this is everyone is, and which is what I was. And they all look so joyful and peaceful, and actually full of knowledge. He asked different people, including the ladies, to explain this part, and they would get in there and explain the philosophy. You know, it was very nice. So I was impressed with that. And the main thing that happened is I wanted to learn more. You know, I wanted to visit the temple like that. So that's what we should be like that. You know, in all of our interactions, so people are more curious. Well, what is this person doing What are they eating? You know, so that they're so blissful and free of the anxiety that's always on my head. And that's a way that we can attract people to Krishna consciousness. All right, any questions or comments? Any objections? All right, so we'll end with a little poem. The dessert. Is it okay? Is that right? All right, thank you. Well, is this classic? Some of you hadn't heard it in a while, because you know, you're not in my Gita class. There was this one lady who came. I'd never seen her before, and I think it was Tuesday. And I give the usual thing at the end. I say, if someone wants my poems, you can write me. So she wrote me, and she asked, "Can you please send me that poem about was it self-discipline or something like that?" I said, "What is she talking about?" And the only one I remember saying was this one about the fall and redemption of the soul. So I'll give you that one. Where Krishna lives, felicity abounds. With pure simplicity and loving sensibility, all serve him with humility. But when a living entity rejects his true identity and out of his stupidity surrenders to cupidity, he loses all sagacity and with it all capacity to understand reality or curb his sensuality. Abandoning humility, he touts his own ability, forgetting his fragility and fortune's volatility. Immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of lives devoid of piety, he suffers in anxiety, till contact with God's devotee, perhaps of utmost brevity, awakens his affinity for words of the divinity. Perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, he casts away his vanity. And endowed with new humility. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. No. Okay, perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, the soul regains his sanity and casts away his vanity. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. Regaining his identity, the wayward living entity returns to the fraternity of Krishna for eternity. So that got the approval of Jayawada Swami. He liked that one. So. Okay, that brings us to the end of the class. Thank you for your attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.